It's been funny for me to watch as I've ventured more into the metal market to see what new music is out there, just how much my playlist has started to really favor European groups. And I've got a good range of American talent. We have plenty of groups here, and artists that are real staples in regard to the metal market. But Europe is a creative force to be reckoned with, in my opinion. Many of their groups I've listened to and come to favor over the years have really stuck with me, including Within Temptation, which was a recent introduction for me. I don't remember how they popped up. Maybe it was in connection to maybe another group I was listening to, probably Blackbriar, I'm sure. But both, are led by very talented female vocalists. I forget the name of this one for Within Temptation. It's Sharon Denondell. As I was saying, though, it was a pretty recent introduction that I had in regard to Within Temptation since I'm getting to this video, just maybe a couple months ago. But I've really come to like them, from their symphonic emphasis in their music. I mean, Shed My Skin was just beautiful, to some of their other maybe more like rock-driven tracks, faster, Cineid, is that how you pronounce that one? I don't know. Maybe, again, I don't have it's necessarily the extensive roster that other Within Temptation fans do in regard to their music. I'm still kind of venturing into them as a band. But from the tracks I've heard, I've really appreciated their talent. And I would definitely say they're another voice in the European realm of metal that really impresses me. And probably many others out there. And I love to give, recognition to talented music groups. Music for me has been a market that I've wanted to venture much more into over the past couple of years, as I've been saying pretty often now at this point. I tend to cover a wide range of entertainment ventures within many different markets, but music for me is a very valuable art form. It's probably, I would say, one of the most potent that I've experienced. For me, music, I've listened to so many groups with different tracks and messages and songs that have really spoken to me. Not maybe just a message, though, but also maybe just by their talent. Tracks that just, they hit you and you first listen to them and you're like, man, this is just art at its finest. And songs you just appreciate, right, for the entirety of your life. There's tracks I've listened to for many years that have stuck with me. Within Temptation, some recent releases, admittedly, they haven't aged perhaps as long as some of the other rock groups I listened to, but the tracks I have heard, I can't get out of my head just because of how good they are. So I wanted to add in, of course, a new one. And they recently had this track debut called Don't Pray For Me. This should be an interesting one to talk about. I previewed the message as well as the overall artist's intention. We'll get to that after we listen to it together. But I do want to apply a tune to it. Because, the message is one level or one layer to a track, but a tune is supposed to be an effective complement. I would imagine for Within Temptation, this won't be an exception. I'm really looking forward to listening to it. I've heard good remarks toward it so far. Let me give it a first listen. Perhaps for you, this is the first introduction. If so, welcome to the realm of European music. And we'll definitely be covering more artists out there beyond just Within Temptation. I've already got a list again. Like I said, my playlist is growing, so is my list of artist coverage. But let's go ahead and take a look. Again, I love to give shout outs to art wherever I see it. Perhaps even especially among my friends group, if no one else listens to it. I experience that type of sentiment where it's like I walk into a room and my social circle does not listen to even I'd say 90% of the music I listen to. It's fine though. I'm the one of taste, obviously. Anyway, without further ado, here we go. Let's listen to it. Don't Pray For Me from Within Temptation. Plus with the music video as a compliment.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at that atmosphere. Very strong introduction. Very strong vocals, excellent song. Such interesting costumes too. That's beautiful. That's good. like I said, we'll talk about the message in a second, but this tune is excellent. It's a great music video too. That salt line is good. It's a deep song though to consider, but you're just enraptured by this tune. Like the vocals on that section are beautiful, highly effective transition. This is what I love in European music. That orchestral direction, I love it. So captivating.
I'm going to let you pray for me.
I'd be really interested to hear some more of the personal inspiration behind the song. Like, what was the overall motivation? We'll get to at least what Sharon has expressed from a broader statement. There's at least one, but the lyrics are very interesting, at least to consider. But the song is just beautiful. Even in my taste of European music, again, there's some variance in regard to the groups I listen to in direction with their talents. For example, let's say Bullet for My Valentine, another favorite, or Dead by April, right? Bullet for My Valentine being more like heavy thrash metal, for the most part. Dead by April, electronic metal, versus groups like Blackbriar or Snow White Blood or Within Temptation that have more of a symphonic orchestral direction. That's just, again, I love all the different types of music within that I've listed in regards to those groups. Again, my tastes vary, but this is beautiful. And even with the brief run I've had in regard to listening to Within Temptation and their music, there's just something about this group that you listen to them and you're like, wow. Again, this is present. We don't have to see it as much in America. I haven't noticed it, but maybe we do. If you're familiar with any like symphonically driven metal groups in, American based, feel free to shoot some down my way. I'd love to have more groups to cover on this channel, number one, but also hear more music again in this vein, because Within Temptation, that's what endeared me right away. Again, Shed My Skin, I think was the first track I listened to by them, and that was like, wow. I mean, the music video too is expertly filmed, and this as well is a very captivating scenic presentation. It's fun. The crowd's an interesting design too. I don't know. I was getting a bit like a Mother Nature vibe. I don't know. It's stylish. It's just a beautiful song. A lot of atmosphere, like from the get-go, and those transitions between verses. Oh, the vocals. What I love. Anyway, the song itself is interesting. I mean, I find it, very contemplative. And coming from a Christian direction, I perhaps have a bit of a different take, at least on some elements. I think, there is, of course, a value to prayer. If you look at it maybe more directly, or this song could have more of a metaphorical interpretation intended. Again, it's sometimes it's hard to gauge, especially on like a first listen, where it's very much, you're just becoming introduced to the lyrics and the song. Sometimes maybe a subsequent listen, messages better stick in with you. But if we can at least get some interpretation here from the artist, I like to get anything I can. And this has been stated, I believe, I'm reading a quote off of mxdwn.com. I've seen this quote carried other places as well. Within Temptations vocalist Sharon Delando had this to say when describing the meaning behind Don't Pray For Me, stating, "Don't pray for me strives against forcing beliefs and fears onto others and bears witness to being accepted of everyone's own journey." I could see again some, I'll get to that in a minute. I'll read the quote in its completion. "It is an anthem about coming to terms with the fact that beliefs can be fluid, multiple, or frankly different. The song is about allowing people to pursue their own destiny." As a Christian, obviously I have a bit of a set belief pattern, but I do understand, when she talks about like striving against forcing beliefs. Yes, I do agree with that. I think there's a value, in people coming to an understanding of truth and faith from an individualistic perspective. Of course, maybe perhaps with the encouragement and advice of others, but not that it's coerced. I think, as a Christian, when it comes to beliefs, right, you oftentimes tend to find if you leave an open door versus, I don't know, for some people it might feel like you're dropping an anvil on their head in regard to like, well, don't force me to, go one way or the other, right? People, I think, are more likely to come to, I'm not saying necessarily that they will, but people might feel more open to at least humoring the possibility of coming to a belief through an independent walk, right? Perhaps with people coming alongside, perhaps and providing input, but still allowing that space for individual agency. I do think the open door approach is much more effective than perhaps, you need to believe the way that I do. It's like, well, I mean, we can heavily, implore somebody, but you can't dictate. People aren't necessarily going to be the most open to that. Maybe some people are, I don't know. But generally, I think it's much more approachable to provide an individual, an independent path. And being accepting of everyone's own journey. That, I think, there's also a value. Like I said, the independent spirit that perhaps would better befit, someone coming to understanding of terms. But also that understanding where we might agree to disagree, perhaps. But we still, treat each other amicably. We can still, encourage and, of course, a guide, or at least attempt to, but doing it respectfully and aware that everybody, is their own person. Again, from the angle I come at, even as a Christian, I am a firm believer in the value of independence. I say this in particular because much of my spiritual walk and practical walk in life has been based upon just independent steps, even if perhaps I've had, friends or general acquaintances or fellow Christians or, other believers or, parents that have guided me or influenced me. I've also had many ventures in my life where I've learned of my own understanding, the world around me, and perhaps myself through an independent walk where no one else could afford that to me. And in many ways, I've also spoken about this before, my healing journey that I've been on for the past couple of years is, well, really since my childhood fostered in me, just based on necessity, a default independent trait. I've had to be that way. So for me, I've always been, again, a firm believer in the independent spirit because that's been my life's definition, really. But that's been present over the past couple of years. And so I easily agree with Sharon on that there is a value, again, of everybody, affording agency to an individual and accepting that perhaps, again, everyone is their own unique person in regard to their journey, right? It does, again, we can leave an open door, but we're still respectful about it. Going on beyond that, an anthem of coming to terms with the fact that beliefs can be fluid, multiple, or frankly different. Yeah, there's contrasting beliefs across the board. The song's about allowing people to pursue their own destiny. As I stated, independence, core value of mine. But this has also been something that, not just within Temptation. I mean, this has been present within a lot of their tunes, but many different rock groups I've listened to have spoken as well to the value of individual destiny, right? Well, not necessarily in those terms, but everybody pursuing their own path. And again, it's a sentiment that I do agree with. So, looking at the song, different ways, perhaps maybe you look more of a metaphorical approach, which oftentimes can happen. I mean, there's a lot of variance in the rock circuit, right? You have some groups that perhaps write from a more metaphorical, figurative, philosophical lens, maybe more so dabble with like poetry styles in their writing. Maybe for some other groups, it's much more direct. It depends again on the group and the message. There's a lot of factors to consider in terms of of how a track is written and why. So you could look at this track from like two different lenses. I mean, the video even had some like visual religious metaphors, and there is that presence obviously of like, don't pray for me. It's a very religious concept, and every time you bow down your head to pray, don't pray for me, don't pray for me. Again, not to shortcut the value of prayer, because maybe I have some disagreement on that, but I do think, again, there's an indispensable value for people to be individuals about, you know, their life and their walk. Like, you're trying over and over, denying what I feel, and every time I bow, or I get kind of what you're saying. There's that feeling of, again, forced. To me, at least when I read that, there's a feeling of coercion. Slightly. I mean, again, I don't know necessarily how the track is written. I'm not going to try to get in the mind of whoever wrote the track. Although sometimes, you know, I'm like, well, I wouldn't mind walking in people's heads. Not to say, or like, I'd love to know all their, you know, beeswax. But for me, I'm like, when I look at music, and this is something I love to do, and perhaps maybe, again, this is different. You know, people come to appreciate music in different ways. For me, I like to get that deeper analytical perspective. Music has been a craved artistic expression, in particular because music for me has been such a healing remedy in my own life, in particular for, you know, the different struggles that I've been through, or just even just trying to get a general understanding of my, you know, myself and the way that I see the world. I like to have that experience of digging into an artist's intentions. Like you would, for example, if you went to like a meet and greet with an author, right? You're trying, let's say you were an emerging writer and you're trying to get creative inspiration in your own endeavors. You'd look to a voice of talent or somebody that, you know, perhaps spoke to you through their art, right? You try to get a deeper perspective of how, you know, what were you thinking at the time? Perhaps to work as a gauge for you to, so to speak, unlock your own talents. For Within Temptation, you know, I read a song like this, it really makes me want to understand deeper, you know, what was is there an illustration behind the song, right? What is the song beyond just perhaps a general statement, you know, delivered by the band? Is there the personal story here? I'd love to know more about it, because, you know, I see it again, a prominence of message. While I might have some, you know, contrarian thoughts on the religious side of things, I see a value when it plays as a metaphor to the individual, and speaking to, again, fostering and being happy with an independent spirit. Because, I don't think in any way that should be discredited from somebody. Again, I see the push for that because it is such an invaluable trait for people. Generally speaking, I think everybody should be able to at least have some sense of independence in their life. I know it, again, by necessity. It is invaluable. It's a very contemplative track. And certainly one I think, you know, it's interesting to consider. I mean, if you want to dive deeper, too, I didn't see this. Actually, no, I did, but the website I pulled up didn't acknowledge this quote. AZ Lyrics did. We live in a world where cultures and beliefs are melting together while at the same time acts of intolerance and injustice dominate the world. Both societal issues and a rapid increase in some beliefs have resulted in fear, fragmentation, disconnect. There's a lot of groups right now. I think maybe it's just, I don't know. Maybe, again, there's an individualist passion among the group to write about something like, again, that spirit of independence that Within Temptation has expressed before. But I feel that, you know, with a lot of groups these days that I've listened to, especially over the last couple of months, there's a passion to speak about the issues of life. Shinedown's done this. I would say Starset's even done this too, although they're much more, I don't know. I love Starset. They're very figurative, though. But there's a lot of, like, real-world analogies in their songs. Demon Hunter even did this very recently, too, with their album, which is also conceptual in nature, Five Finger Death Punch. There's this push among a lot of rock groups I listen to speak about the real world, right, and issues on a broad level, and mixing that in with the song. There's a lot of, you know, material here, at least, to consider. And again, this is a first impression listen for me, so I haven't as much time to think in regard to the metaphors of the song. I best, you know, apply not only my own experiences. I like to analyze music, so for me, you know, and that usually happens more so with like 2 or 3 listens versus a first impression. But I think on a music level, it's a fantastic track, and there's a lot to consider in regard to the lyrics. They're very deep, quite complex, and I would highly encourage you, perhaps, if you have some sort of vision, perhaps not only have this, you know, again, like I said, music deeply resonates with people, you know, on a broad level, and perhaps, again, to different contexts and different situations, but people across, you know, the world, like, for example, in Europe, and apparently in America, too. You can witness that from me covering Within Temptation and being so, you know, infatuated with the track. music speaks to different people, whatever context is best suited, for an individual's life. So I would love to hear, perhaps to get a feeling, again, of connection and resonance, perhaps what you feel. And again, maybe just to have a deeper understanding, perhaps, of, what Within Temptation is talking about, and to see how that fits and imagines itself practically in people's lives. If you feel so inclined, I'd love to hear how this song affects you in the way that you interpret its message and how you can best see it applied to your own life. It may take me some time. This project usually does, but there's a lot of stuff to consider here with this track. It's a very deeply written one. I'd love to hear, though, your thoughts generally on it, whether you happen to be a long-time listener of Within Temptation, maybe a long-time fan, or perhaps a first-time listener. What are your thoughts? Maybe you didn't know that Europe has so many talented artists out there in the rock circuit. They do. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. And I would also say, in the future, if you are interested, as I make mention of on most of my music coverage, I'm going to be starting a channel as of the new year, January 2023. I'm going to start production on it pretty soon. It's called Symphonies and Small Talk. Both of these channels are going to be intertwined. Of course, I will continue to cover Within Temptation on here in regard to new music, should they ever release anything, which I'm sure they will. But with Symphonies and Small Talk, it's going to be a complement to this channel, in that this one is much more first impression reaction based. I can think of a couple tracks from Within Temptation even I've listened to that perhaps I'd love to dig into deeper. Symphonies and Small Talk is going to allow me the ability to talk about music that, whether it be more recent listens, like Within Temptation, or perhaps music that's lasted longer with me. It's going to allow me to talk about music that I find, worth discussing and sharing, perhaps. And again, I've got a growing roster at this point, but I want to feature groups, whether it be, just from a talent perspective in their music, or the message is a very resonant theme, or a deep one to consider, or, the artists themselves. It's a goal of mine, in fact, especially to specifically showcase different artists from multiple different standpoints, whether it be in genre taste, or ability, or even just in prominence. I've got a lot of big name rock groups I'm already thinking of, but I've got some indie artists I'd also love to feature on there too that have also been much lesser known, but I absolutely think, are worth the attention. So perhaps if you are interested in my music coverage on this channel, I'd like to get deeper perspective perhaps for songs that have stuck with me for far longer, that I'm familiar with, and just be able to talk about music on a deeper level. I would highly encourage you. Again, it's going to take some time for the channel to debut. I have to work on it, but by the new year, I'm trying to get for that January 1st, 2023 release date. I would encourage you to keep your eyes peeled for Symphonies and Small Talk when it launches. And Within Temptation, I can think perhaps I'll bring them on at some point. We'll see. I've got a couple tracks we could talk about at a deeper level. But of course, I'll continue to cover them here if there are new tracks available. But this is good. And again, I have not listened to their entire body of work yet, but this is beautiful. It's got that symphonic edge. I love that in European music. It's metal, and Sharon's vocals are incredible, and it's got a deep, message to consider to boot. It's great on all layers, in my opinion. It's a fabulous addition to their work, and definitely to my playlist. I cannot wait to listen to it more. It's a beautiful track. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.